Welcome! Today we're doing a tour of my backyard vegetable garden. We're checking out a few of my little garden secrets that you might not know about that are vegetable garden related that I'm trying out for the first time this season. And if you're new here, welcome! My name is Lisa and this is my garden on central Vancouver Island. I garden in a zone 7 to 9 depending on who you ask. And my garden has a lot of full sun. So let's check out what is growing in the backyard garden. Starting right behind me, we have this little container. These are all tomato seedlings that I started in milk jugs and ended up transplanting into this container when I thought the milk jugs needed to be evicted. They were still too small for the ground. But I do think I'm going to save a lot of these tomato seedlings and put them in the ground soon because they are just taking off with growth. Here we have a cucumber seedling. This is a long English cucumber, and no, I didn't grow this from seed. This was a store-bought seedling. My milk jug cucumbers did not do well this season. Only a couple of them survived. So this was a store-bought seedling, and it had a bit of a struggle for a while, but it seems to be doing okay now. And here is a store-bought tomato plant. I did have some that I grew from seed, which I'll show you shortly, but I also have a few store-bought and a few from local plant sales. Let's dive a little deeper into this garden. We have lots of onions here mixed with crocosmia flowers. Kind of a jungle situation we've got happening. There's some lettuce that I definitely need to pick soon. My cabbage is going to be ready to be harvested at any time. This is the first time I've ever grown cabbage, and I think it's doing pretty well. I planted these in early spring. I'm going to say end of February, beginning of March, and first time I've ever grown them. Really happy with how it's going. Calendula flowers are starting to bloom. This is one of these two tomatoes I started in my house at the end of winter in some soil, and they're doing pretty well. There's a marigold I started in my house also blooming. This was another homegrown tomato that started inside the home. And my biggest tomatoes over here, there's one. And this really large tomato plant, which has quite a few flowers and no tomatoes yet. These were all started in my house in the winter time. And I have to say, tomatoes and cabbage plants, they love each other. I don't know if they're traditional companion plants, but they should be because they really do well together. You can see the cabbage in the background. It is on fire with growth, and same with the tomato plant. There's some calendulas nearby here. A giant sunflower. Well, it's not really that giant, but compared to the rest of them, it's a good sized sunflower. Almost about to get its flower head. You can see my Chicago hardy fig in the background. The garlic is just starting to form its scapes now. Not quite ready to pick them, but anytime now I definitely could come out here and do some scape harvesting. Coming over here, the peas have never had such a late season. I've just started eating them, and there's a few on the vines. They're not having their best growing season, quite honestly, but that's okay. It's been really weird weather. This season we've gone from really cold to really warm and really cold again, and like a yo-yo in the temperature world. From spring to summer and back to spring again, several times over, and the plants are so confused. My raspberries that grow in the middle of this garden haven't even flowered yet. I suspect they're going to bloom really late in the season and have a really late harvest. It's so strange. They've never done this before, and they've been here for about 8 years in this section of garden. So definitely confused plants. Here we have some tomato plants. These were mostly from a clearance at just the real Canadian superstore, and I have a few that were from a local plant sale in my neighborhood. This huge one was actually, I believe it was $2 or $3 from like a little family-owned plant stand down the road that had a little sale on. Very cool. More sunflowers. My corn is finally starting to take off. There's maybe 6 or so plants in here grown from seed. Tons and tons of onions in this garden. More garlic. More cabbage. Not quite as vigorous as the ones with the tomatoes. And over here we have some more tomatoes and my honeydew. Oh, it's not looking as good as I remembered it. It was store-bought, but it looks like it is struggling. There's one plant here, and there is another plant in here. Should be. It's being overtaken by the raspberries, but it is still alive, so that's good. We have a bell pepper plant over here, a cucumber, I believe, cucumber squash, and some more tomatoes in this quadrant. I still need to get some cages out. The peas, again, not having their best growing season. There's more over here that are just starting to get peas. And what you see, those white flowers are carrot flowers. I think this is the first time I've let my carrots flower. I did a taste test on them. They are edible. They're okay. I was thinking of creating a recipe with them, but I haven't done it yet. So that might still happen, not sure, but I'm also thinking of using them in bouquets. I haven't done that either, but I think the bouquets might come before the recipe. And next we're checking out my containers and grow bags. I have a whole bunch of different containers here, mostly grow bags with a few little containers thrown in. This is a bell pepper I planted in a recent live stream from that little plant sale I went to down the road. These plants are so healthy and doing well. This tomato plant actually has bird poop. The birds have been landing on this cage so often and doing their business. These little tomatoes are just getting their flowers. This tomato is seemingly quite happy growing alongside a pansy flower. More bell peppers. These were from the plant sale. I didn't grow them in my house. This one's growing with one of my milk jug tomatoes. More tomatoes, and yes, I need more tomato cages. They're in the garage. I just have to take them out. And coming this way, this was actually one of my only successful milk jug cucumbers, and it looks like it has powdery mildew. Not super happy with that, but at least it's alive. All the ones I put in the ground, I think, passed away, which is so sad. Some bug was really into them this season, but this one is diseased. I don't know if I should treat it with milk. I've heard if you put milk on the leaves, that can kill the mildew. I don't know if that's true. Don't usually have this problem on cucumbers, so let me know your remedies for cucumber mildew in the comments. More tomatoes, my beans. These ones are doing well. I planted tons of beans, and these are the only ones that are doing well in the whole garden. Most have not even sprouted, which is really sad. I don't normally have poor luck with beans. This lettuce, I definitely need to harvest it soon, growing along a milk jug tomato. And some more tomatoes. We have, I think this was a cucumber from that plant sale, was it? Yes, this was a cucumber from the plant sale. The tag is here. That was in the last week or so planted. Over here, I actually can't remember. I planted either cantaloupe or watermelon, these little tiny seedlings. They were store-bought. They're growing really slowly. But, oh, I think it's cantaloupe. I think that's what my tag says. So we'll see if they do anything. I'm not holding out hope. In all my years gardening here, I don't know if I've ever been successful. I can't remember growing a cantaloupe that worked out. Or maybe I did once. But I actually have better luck with watermelon, and watermelon is the challenge. I've only done that twice, 2 growing seasons successfully, so time will tell. There are some lettuces at various stages of development, some closer to harvesting than others. More sunflowers. These are smaller varieties growing here. And some broccoli has come back to life. My supervisor, when he was alive, he loved to eat this. Rarely did I get to this stage because he loved mutilating broccoli plants so much. And some variegated lettuce that I've been cutting and eating from and letting it bounce back. Now we're going to venture into some of the more obscure areas of the garden to check out what's growing. A little tiny tomato plant I transplanted from the milk jugs into the landscape, still alive, but so small. You can tell it's right here if the camera's going to focus. My nasturtiums are going crazy. These are 100% edible, the leaves and the flowers. But I must say, I did eat these white and pale orange nasturtiums in a taste test. These ones don't taste that good. Compared to normal nasturtium flowers, it wouldn't be a flavor I would personally recommend. Here's another one of my milk jug tomatoes growing in the landscape. This one is doing particularly well. I'm going to come down a little further. I have lots more squash plants, but they're kind of struggling in the landscape, and they were struggling in the vegetable garden. A lot of them got eaten by an unknown suspect. The bottom of my gravel pathway now, and we have some tomato plants. There's another tomato plant back here, and I believe there was a squash plant in here. I'm just trying to see where it disappeared to. I wonder if something ate it because I don't actually see it now. There was one. Appears to be gone. Very interesting. Coming into the cottage garden, we have planted a few vegetables in here. There is a zucchini plant right here. Something is eating it, but it is still thriving. Tomato plant in here, pretty small still, and I can't remember if this is a melon that I planted it with or a squash, but something is growing with it. And another squash here, so tiny still. And I have another, I believe this is zucchini that I grew from seed. It's growing, but it's really slowed down in its growth. Kind of getting infected by a bug, maybe? I'm not sure. Deep inside the cottage garden, I don't know if you can tell, but there is actually a tomato plant in there. Kind of being overgrown by the oregano that is starting to bloom. Right here, this was Supervisor's or his supervisor's memorial garden. If you're new here, my golden retriever that I had for 10 years passed away about 4 or 5 months ago now, and I made a little memorial garden for him shortly after he passed. And these are cabbages. My first year planting cabbages, I put some in the vegetable garden and some in his memorial garden, and they're starting to get their heads. If you're new here, you may not know this, but my golden retriever loved mutilating my vegetables. He loved to eat broccoli, tomatoes, lettuces, squash leaves, cucumber leaves, melon leaves. He was all about eating fruits, vegetables, and leaves. So that is why I planted edible food in his memorial garden, because I thought it was only fitting to remember him properly with some food. Coming into the rock garden now, we're going to check out some of my garden surprises. If you've never watched my live streams, you may not know this. I am attempting to grow pumpkins in my front garden. Last season I was successful doing that, and this year I went all in on pumpkins in the rock garden. This garden has traditionally only been an ornamental garden until last season when I did my first pumpkin experiment. And we went for it this season and put pumpkins everywhere, and they are doing so well here, better than any of the squash, cucumbers, or melons in my backyard garden, which I think is super interesting. There's a whole collection of pumpkins here of different varieties. This is a different part of the rock garden. And some are doing better than others. Most are growing with nasturtiums beside them. And I even planted an old plant from last year's gardening series, Pumpkin Big Macs. I didn't grow this from seed. This was store-bought. It actually looks like it's struggling. But we'll see. Last year I wasn't successful with Pumpkin Big Macs. I only had my white pumpkins, but we'll see how it does in the front garden. And there's a tomato plant that doesn't look very happy here. I have a milk jug tomato growing in this little fairy garden container. Seems to be doing okay here with a couple strawberries. Speaking of strawberries, these are all self-seeded from when I used to have a container garden over here, and I'm going to eat them before the birds do because the birds love my strawberries. Give it a taste test. It wasn't perfectly red, but so sweet. I'm glad I didn't let the birds eat it. This is what I used to call the secret garden. I don't have much here right now. You see some remnants from when it really was a secret garden. But it is a secret strawberry haven in here. These strawberries grow so well. And overall, the birds don't seem to get them as often in here, which is super fun. Have a little strawberry snack. And maybe one more since we're here. So good. Even if they're not perfectly ripe, still 10 times better than a store-bought strawberry. So sweet. And this is the driveway garden, and there are also pumpkins in here. This is where they grew last year. And here's one very healthy pumpkin plant, still small. I also planted bush beans in here, and they are just starting to sprout. There's another pumpkin plant here. Some nasturtiums that are struggling. And that is today's vegetable garden update. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you want to see more garden tours, some flower taste tests, perhaps some forest bathing, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future video. I hope you have a lovely day, evening, or night wherever you are. Bye-bye.